especially the director of NİDE, Ömer Halis Demir University, Professor Muhsin Kar, and Professor Nevzat Şimşek, and Associate Professor Selim Şanlısoy. In the pre-conference period, they helped me a lot. Thanks for your invitation. Today, I'm going to share with you some perhaps interesting ideas, because business as usual models, we are always talking about business as usual models, but what I will suggest at the end of the speech, at the end of the presentation, I will try to highlight the importance of formulating, preparing some plausible, possible, scientific, reasonable scenarios for the future. Okay, why I will suggest something like this? I wanted to show to the last step to you to show the whole picture of my presentation, because I don't know why it is not moving. How I can do, okay. We all know most probably the term, new economy term. It is a term many economists, they started to use in the last decade of the 20th century. And they argued that information technologies, communication technologies, the internet, ultra high-tech companies, and globalization had created completely new type of economy. And it is changing how we work and live. See, we organize online conference, and more than 60 participants now are with us. And we are all at different corners of perhaps this country or some other countries. So we are observing a very serious economic metamorphosis. And there are different terms many people are using, VUCA, tuna, and etc. One of them is VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. So we are surrounded with lots of, unfortunately, uncertainties and complex problems. So we live in a turbulent world, this is for sure. But our plans, strategies, and policies are based on fixed goals. But the environment that we are living and all the conditions are changing very rapidly. When we prepare our 5-year plans, perhaps at the end of the first year, everything will change. We don't know. So governance at corporate level, at governmental level is becoming much more difficult. So there is a transformation. We are moving from an industrial to knowledge-based economy. Still, we couldn't complete the space, and economic and market conditions are increasingly unstable, especially on a global basis. So the entire business environment is becoming more complex. Complexity and chaos theories today in sciences are gaining popularity, and I highly suggest my young colleagues to work on these topics. In 2002, former US Defense Secretary Ronald Rumsfeld, in his brief press briefing, gave a speech, and he said, there are known knowns. There are things that we know. And we also know that there are known unknowns. We know that we don't know. But there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know, even we don't know. So this became a very famous expression. So today, we live in a new era of uncertainty for organizations, for individuals, and for governments to cope with. And the human family are very interconnected as never before. So strategic readiness for the future, for organizations, for countries, for all of us, yes, it is very difficult. It is easier said than done. We say many things, but at the end, markets are collapsing very often. We are surrounded with the challenge of an uncertain world, and a fear of not knowing the future is always with us. Again, in the another indication of this increasing uncertainty in the 1950s, the average company listed in the Standard & Poor's 500 index stayed there for almost 60 years. But today, the lifespan, the average duration of each company listed in the biggest stock exchange market of the US is staying there less than 20 years. And according to one projection, half of the companies on the Standard & Poor's 500 index today will be replaced over the next 10 years. So I am going to summarize my ideas under three main titles, headings, which are very simple, but just I would like to give you a different view and different, perhaps, worldview and way of thinking for formulating our policies for the future, including our energy policy. So uncertainties in the post-normal times and political economy of energy, most probably many of you know more than me, and policy suggestions for energy security, not to have interruptions in our energy sources, what we need to do, okay? So first, I want to be humble. No one can know what will happen in the future. But our major problems of today, require a radical shift in our perceptions, thinking, and values. Today, 21st century is called post-normal times, which is characterized by complexity, chaos, and contradictions. And nowadays, everyone is talking about post-normal science, which is characterized by uncertainties, systems view of thinking, alternative perspectives, unknowns, values, and etc. And also human economy. These are the technical terms I would like to underline their importance. So, human economy is dominated by the use of our creativity, character, passion. Okay, so how we can move from knowledge economy to human economy? Because yes, technological improvements are improving the quality of our life, but sometimes they are destroying our lives. There is a bigger loss of privacy and alienation, and many people are visiting psychologists more. So modern life is bringing lots of problems with it. So I think we all agree that energy is the resource used to exploit all other resources. So the macroeconomic implications of the supply shock induced energy crisis for sure will be very large. And electricity shortage can be felt in heating, cooking, and water supply. So a sustained energy crisis may turn into a humanitarian crisis quite easily. And we observe lots of black swan events. If there are some people who don't know the meaning of black swan event, at a very simple level, black swan event means very low probability, but very big impact events. The probability of occurrence is very low, but once they happen, it may create devastating effects on us, like 9/11 event or collapse of Enron or today's pandemic. People who are interested in financial markets will remember Goldman Sachs, which uses quantitative strategies across a range of asset classes. Their flagship Global Alpha Fund lost almost 1/3 of its value in 2008. And at that time period, the chief financial officer of this company said, we were seeing things that were 25 standard deviation moves several days in a row. What does this mean? Plus minus 6 standard deviation may occur every 1.5 million years. So what does this mean? So 25 standard deviation move means what? So I would like to summarize some uncertainties. I know that uncertainty and risk, they have different meanings. Uncertainty, we don't know even the probability of occurrence. When we are talking about risk, at least we know the probability of risk, but they are used interchangeably in literature. I took these risks from the latest report of World Economic Forum, the Global Risk Report, which is prepared through a Global Risk Perception Survey with Association Cambridge Center for Risk Studies. So these are the latest expert perceptions, we may say it like this. They are asking to several people. So some of the economic risks that we may face in the forthcoming future are listed as follows: energy price shock, critical infrastructure failures, blow up in asset prices, asset price collapse, oil price shock, China economic slowdown, deglobalization, fiscal crisis, fiscal imbalances, unemployment, income disparity, And there are some serious environmental risks, human-made disasters, climate action failure, biodiversity loss, extreme weather, non-national disasters, and there are some geopolitical risks, weapons of mass, the extensive use of weapons of mass destruction, terrorist attacks, interstate conflict, global governance failure. Hope this will never happen. United Nations will manage to solve these conflicts. And there are some societal risks, infectious diseases. The current pandemic that we are observing is a serious threat to all of us. Food crisis, water crisis, and failure of urban planning, involuntary migration, social instability. And there are some technological risks, information infrastructure breakdown, cyber attacks, cybersecurity, data fraud or theft, adverse technological advances. Most probably you know the technical term disruptive technologies. So some innovations can replace the previous markets and products. So we are surrounded with these kind of risks and uncertainties, macroeconomic uncertainties. No country can isolate himself or herself from these kind of risks. Related with political economy of energy, I will very shortly will share with you, there is not a big change in the picture. Steel, coal, and oil, fossil fuels are dominating both energy consumption and production markets. But we are facing scarcity related economic and political problems more today because the population of the world is increasing, industrialization is increasing, globalization is another factor. So energy scarcity, inability threatens the stability of societies and can cause serious new international conflicts. It's not can cause, it is also causing. So the availability and cost of energy may limit our ability to roll over supply chain. It may cause supply interruptions. So energy policy mismanagement may cause several deep-seated problems, not only in the energy sector, it is related with all other markets. Still, the world energy sector is dominated by fossil fuels. Oil makes up 34% of world energy consumption, coal constitutes 27%, and natural gas 24%. If you collect, I think it will give you 85%. Crude oil and natural gas production continue to grow, with the big producers remaining Saudi Arabia and the US, Iran, and Russia. And furthermore, it remains the case that huge quantities of capital are tied up in fossil fuels companies. In 2017, they made up 6 of the global top 10 companies as measured by revenues. But there are, of course, significant changes taking place in terms of who the producers are, of demand profiles, as well as of types of fossil fuels being produced. In terms of changing production profiles, it is most notable that the US share of global oil and gas production is expected to grow significantly due to its unconventional shale oil and gas revolution, with production levels forecast to double between 2005 and 2025. This will leave Saudi Arabia and Russia in relatively less dominant positions within global oil markets, perhaps. And at the same time, on the demand side, although expectations are that oil will continue to grow till 2040, the rate of this growth is expected to decrease steadily. And public research and development budgets have shifted to renewables, storage, and energy efficiency, which is so nice. How we can store energy and how we can improve energy efficiency, because more is less. Even if we manage to increase energy production through natural resources, not by using clean tech technologies, still there will be scarcity. So we need to concentrate on demand side, educate people for energy efficiency, how we can save energy, how we can change our daily lives. In 2015, 55% of public energy research and development budgets went to sustainable energy, from about 18% in 1974, when over 70% of research investments went into nuclear energy. just to use my time efficiently, if you couldn't read which regions, in this graph, I would like to share with you oil production and consumption by region. But if you couldn't read which color represent which region, don't worry, just concentrate on green and yellow part. Green parts represent North America. As you see, both on production and consumption sides, the share of Canada, America is increasing, and yellow shows Asia Pacific, includes China. So as you see, all consumption by region is increasing significantly in the yellow part because of China. It is more or less the same for natural gas. On the left-hand side of my screen, you see production by region, the breakdown of production of natural gas by region. Again, green part shows North America and yellow part shows Asia Pacific. On both sides, we observe an increase in both regions. And in this one, shares of global primary energy, luckily, oil, green line is decreasing, and coal is remaining constant or decreasing slightly, let's say. But luckily, natural gas, and moreover, more important than this, orange one, dark orange one at the bottom of the graph, renewables is increasing and nuclear energy is decreasing. This is good. And renewables share of power generation by region is increasing almost everywhere. So this yellow graph, yellow line, red line shows natural gas. Still it is increasing. Coal is more or less remaining constant, but there is a slight fall during last years. But if you pay your attention, again, nuclear energy is decreasing, but renewables are increasing significantly. So what we need, more or less, the policy of energy on the world markets, more or less, has remained constant. There is no big change in the picture, just renewables, yes, more countries, because they understood that all our problems, environmental problems, human health related problems, food security, everything, energy problems, they are interconnected and interrelated. We couldn't isolate one of them from the other one. So digital technology revolution is very important, and it has been a major driver both of clean tech innovations, what we need, I think, such as smart meters and grids and unprecedentedly low energy intensity of production. It is also a major cause of destabilization of commodity prices, labor markets, and inflation targeting. Okay, the last part, my policy suggestions for energy security. With energy security, what we mean, we all know what it means, but if we try to give a proper definition of energy security, it is defined by International Energy Agency as follows: reliable, affordable access to all fuels and energy sources. So the uninterrupted availability of energy sources at an affordable price. This is very important. So long-term energy security deals with timely investments to supply energy in line with economic developments and environmental needs. Short-term energy security focuses on the ability of energy system to react on time, promptly, to sudden change in the supply-demand balance. So these problems, energy, the environment, climate change, food security, financial security, cannot be understood in isolation. These are systemic problems, which means that they are interconnected and interdependent. They require radical shift in our perception, thinking, and values. Where we would like to see our organization in the following 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we need to work with very long time horizon, with 50 years horizon. Many companies and countries are doing this now. They prepare, if current trends keep going like this, where we can reach after 20 years, business as usual model. But we need to prepare some pessimistic and optimistic scenarios as well, like stress test of banking system. If this happens, how we can react, counterfactual reasoning. even if they will not happen, we need to get ready for some possible scenarios. No one was expecting such an extensive worldwide pandemic a year ago, but it is with us now. So there are 6 capabilities that organizations need to develop. Strategic anticipation, I value this very much. Navigational leadership, agility, resilience. After shocks, we need to be more powerful. Shocks shouldn't destroy us. Open collaboration and predictive learning. What is strategic anticipation? Flexibility in planning. I value mathematical models a lot, analytical skills and all these things, but we need more than this because as I shared with you in postnormal science, we couldn't predict the madness of people and we couldn't predict some unknown unknowns. It is not that much simple. So we need to replace fixed goal strategic plans with flexible scenarios in the energy sector as well. And we need to prepare our wild cards. Touch wood, we never want it to happen, but if there is a big global war, how we can have some alternative energy sources. Our country is comparatively lucky in terms of solar energy, wind energy, and etc. So we need to work more on these kind of, we should decrease our dependency on foreign resources in the production of our energy. So what I try to say is strategic plans, fixed goal plans may eliminate low probability, big impact events. And we need to work more on these kind of scenarios. And today, the new conception of life is emerging, a new kind of thinking in terms of relationships, patterns, and contexts. And in science, this way of thinking is called systemic thinking or systems thinking. So the understanding of life, a shift of metaphors, a change from seeing the world as a machine to understanding it as a network. And this comes from complexity and chaos theories. In this information and communication technology age, life is becoming increasingly complex. Complex means what? Dynamic. Situation, the problem situation changes as circumstances change. We know the parts, but when parts are coming together, the whole is bigger than its parts. We are having totally different view. So through the eyes of chaos theory, we live in a world consistent with unpredictable events, and we cannot control these unpredictable events and human behaviors. And unfortunately, we are surrounded with lots of complex systems. Markets are complex. Millions of buyers and sellers, when they are coming together and through feedbacks, they adjust themselves, they adapt themselves. So they are changing themselves. Our mathematical models, that's why sometimes are failing to predict the future. And economies with hierarchies of workers, departments, firms, industries, these are complex systems. Multi-celled organisms are complex systems. And the internet with millions of users, stations, servers, websites, it is a complex system. And each complex system exhibits a distinctive property called emergence. The whole is more than the sum of the actions of the parts. Sometimes it is self-organizing, like the flocks of birds. Who can model the movements of the flocks of birds? Sometimes they go up, sometimes down, sometimes rightwards, leftward, and who is leading? This is a self-organizing system, complex system. And uncertainty, we know the meaning, unknown future events that cannot be predicted quantitatively within usable limits. So in the decision-making process, we need high-quality information that may allow us and decision makers to better understand the impact of feedback processes, nonlinear relationships between variables, and time delays on the performance of the complex system. We need to work on what kind of response high-technology societies could give to us. And in this cartoon, one way of dealing with uncertainty, two gentlemen are running or walking And one of them wore thick things as if the weather is so cold. The other one wore as if it is summer. So he says, I dress for the weather I want, not the weather I have. That's what I am trying to say. There are lots of uncertainties, but especially in mathematical modeling, concept uncertainty, measurement uncertainty, calculation uncertainty, sampling uncertainty, mathematical modeling uncertainty, and causal uncertainty. Under all these uncertainties, it would be very difficult to talk about perfect modeling. See what happened in 2020. If we check the growth rate of GDP, gross domestic product of countries in the world markets, in rich countries, in emerging countries, can you see in 2020, there are falls. And if you check the previous trend, we couldn't predict this. And again, what happened on, I think it was in April, West Texas crude oil, which is the most important major crude oil of the US, its futures contract prices went down to -$40. -40 because there was no, because the world oil demand decreased significantly and storages were full. So some people, they didn't want to get crude oil physically and they didn't know what to do with their contracts. So the price went down to -$40, which is unbelievable. From this graph, if you check the previous trend, where it may go in the future, no one can make such a prediction. How we can use strategic foresight in the formulation of our energy policies? We need to use, instead of imagining the future as the extrapolation of the past, we need to use epistle analysis, holistic view. Epistle means economic, political, institutional, sociological, technological, legal, and environmental analysis. If we want to have a sustainable energy sector or sustainability in our country, we need to leave the same amount of natural resources to the next generations as our previous generations left to us. We need to work more on how the future may be different from the present. We need to use our creative power. We need to be more anti-fragile. Instead of using forecasting, yes, we need this, but we need to add some other alternative ways of thinking to the formulation of our energy policies. Foresight is used as a term for predictions, forecast. But foresight, it is a more open perspective on futuristic thinking. We need to use our creativity, collective intelligence, expert panels, Delphi method, and etc. So foresights focus on the identification of possible futures, potential issues, tendencies, and uncertainties by using scenario methods. Foresight is, we may say that is similar to the term prospective analysis. In this graph, you see that some experts forecasted the barrel price of crude oil from time to time. But as you see, the blue line shows the actual one. But the forecast of 1981, the forecast of 1984, no one became real. So as you see here, the crude oil price, if you check real crude oil price in US dollar terms, sometimes it is going up, sometimes it is going down, it is unstable, and it is causing lots of macroeconomic uncertainties as well, especially for countries who are dependent on imported oil and natural gas. So as you see here, there is a serious fall after 2020. We observed serious fall in the crude barrel price of crude oil. Prediction and probability are limited ways of thinking about the future. No one can know the future. The aim should be not finding ways to know the future. Without knowing the future, how we can get ready for the future? How we can prepare wild cards, the worst case scenario, so nothing can shock us. At least if suddenly something bad happens, we will have a roadmap for this. It will not surprise us. It will not cause a big shock for us. In my conclusion, I will share some of my suggestions with you. I'm not the expert of energy policy, but by using in many countries, this method is used, including Germany, Finland, Singapore, and in many companies, including Royal Dutch Shell. Since the 1970s, Royal Dutch Shell is using this, this method very much, preparing plausible, reasonable, possible scientific scenarios for the future. As I shared with you before, it is known that perfect models do not exist, and it is impossible to have all-weather plans. We need to promote energy-saving clean tech technologies. We need to prepare our wild cards and possible black swan events, counterfactual reasoning. What if this happens? If dollar reached to this level, what could happen? If suddenly Saudi Arabia stops producing oil, what could happen, and etc. So educating people on energy efficiency, which is a very important policy, because how much you produce, it doesn't matter. If you produce more, we will consume more. But we need to concentrate on energy efficiency education, even for illiterate people. Technological and material diversity. Instead of, when we explain capital asset pricing model in microeconomics, in finance, in capital asset pricing model, the most important well-known way of reducing risk is diversification. Don't put all your eggs to the same basket. So we need technological and material diversity. And demand management and efficiency policies should be much more effective. And of course, for sustainability, decarbonization of the energy sector, we can use multi-criteria matrices, Delphi method, expert panels, including national, international experts. We need to create scenarios on how the energy system is likely to change over time. We need to create scenarios to cope with the implications of resource depletion and scarcity. We need to work on net zero, which assumes that we need to decarbonize the energy system. So we need a paradigm shift. Paradigm very simply may mean a worldview, accepted worldview. We need a paradigm shift from business as usual scenario, okay, to environmentally friendly scenario. And we need to use epistemic analysis. Everything is related with each other through counterfactual reasoning, through what-if type scenarios. And to solve energy problems, we need to work on alternative scenarios. Instead of relying on large, capital-intensive, complex technologies, we may work more on clean tech energy systems, sustainable energy for all. We need to improve our abilities to deal with change and discontinuity. As you see in all graphs, there are discontinuities, breaks. So change may come from where? We need to talk on this. I would like to mention, these are my last slides. I would like to underline the importance of cybernetics. What does this mean? The theory of cybernetics was the result of a multidisciplinary collaboration between mathematicians, neuroscientists, social scientists, and engineers, a group that became known collectively as cyberneticists. And what we need is, we need to bring scientists from very different fields together to create these scientific scenarios. To deal with the complex problems of post-normal time, we need post-normal science, which could bring many disciplines together. And everyone knows, I think, John Maynard Keynes. He said the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from old ones. We can teach new things to people, but it is almost impossible to unforget the things that we were taught before. We need to change in our daily lives how we can save energy. And the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. We need to be a change maker. We need to change our daily behaviors. And we shouldn't be afraid from technology and innovations. sometimes I'm against of neologism. In many science fiction movies, they show robots with red eyes and trying to frighten us. They will replace human beings, and the same things were said after the Industrial Revolution. Technology is there to improve the quality of life. So we need to use technology to solve our common problems through science. So science, technology, and foresight are the solutions to our common problems. And in the formulation of our energy policy, including some other policies, I think we need to use, for sure we need to use econometric and mathematical models. I'm crazy for them, but we need more than this because we live in such a world. Through the digitalization of production and through the globalization of the world, through globalization, what I mean, the free movement of people, money, goods, services. So we live in a borderless world. And at the first phase of globalization, countries came together and cooperated. In the second phase, companies came together. Which company is owned by which country, we don't know. They are changing hands. And then in the last stage, we observe the globalization of individuals, people without knowing each other. This is called the end of geography. You can take mathematics course from someone in India, and all the hospitals in Chicago, they send their records to India, and some people typing the records of patients, and then because of 8 hours time difference, when the hospitals are opened in Chicago, all the electronic forms are coming from India, from Chennai, and etc. So this, if you speak English and if you use information communication technologies, you can share even your experiences, health problem experiences with someone else. And people without knowing each other can protest, boycott the products of some giant big companies if they exploit their labor force, employees, and etc. So we need to use these tools more, and we can ask to people like direct democracies, their ideas, values, beliefs are very important. How you see 20 years ahead of today, and what kind of new technologies, imagination, creative power. Our analytical skills can be programmed to computers, but our human characters, collaboration, passion, creativity, it is difficult to program these skills to computers. So we need to invest more on the improvement of the 21st century skills in our education system. We need to give bigger importance to them. I would like to thank all of you for your participation, attendance, and your patience. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dear Professor Elif, thank you for your presentation. If there is any question about related this presentation, we can take, or we could take. I think there is no question now. It's good. Okay, well, with your permission, I'd like to end this session by conveying my thanks again to our invited speakers for their contribution to our Congress. Our program will continue at 1 p.m. with EFE. Sayın Hocam, müsaadenizle Türkçe devam edeyim. Katkılarınız için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Kongremize dinlediğimiz bu çarpıcı bilgilerle dolu tebliğinizle katkı verdiğiniz için özellikle çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
Ben size çok teşekkür ederim. Böyle bir imkanı bana verdiğiniz için Muhsin Hocama, sizlere, hepinize ayrı ayrı, çok katılımcılara, emeği geçen herkese çok teşekkür ederim.